Over the next couple weeks, what I'm doing is I am changing out my electrical system for my dual battery. I'm converting it over to a lithium battery. Inspiration for these videos is because I see so many people asking the same questions on Facebook groups and forums. I have the advantage of doing this kind of stuff for a living, so I think it's helpful to throw some of this information around. 10 years ago when I bought this FJ, it was basically you buy a Blue Sea 7622. They're really overbuilt for our use. They're built for like houseboats and stuff. And you get two deep cycle similar batteries and you charge them together. You can winch together, do all that. Blue Sea is the same guys that make these fuse boxes that everybody uses. And these are awesome too. They make really nice stuff, but there's a limitation to what those dual battery systems are good for. When I planned this, I was like, oh, I need the dual battery option for winching. I don't ever need it that much. I've got max tracks. I've got other ways of getting over things. I try not to use a winch, even though I've got synthetic lead. It's still dangerous, so I try to avoid it if I can. If you're building a rock crawler Jeep, maybe the dual battery with a solenoid is the right one for you. My current battery that I have in here is an Optima yellow top. It's a 55 amp hour battery. I thought the yellow top was gonna take care of everything and just be like a self-contained system because I have 165 watts of solar on top of this thing. Solar doesn't work as good in dense climates, so like dense humidity. I never really worried about it before, but when I went into a state where my solar didn't really work that well, then I was relying more on the dual battery. So I was using my dual battery setup. I was going from one place to another, and I was combining the batteries to get a better charge on my auxiliary battery for about an hour or two, and it just isn't enough. With an AGM battery, if your solar is exposed to the sun for, let's say, 3 hours that day, and that's all it gets because the sun's coming, you're sitting in between some trees or something, and you get a little bit of that sunlight coming through. In that 3 hours, lithium is going to take up to 5 times more of that power, so you can get away with less charging time and get more out of it. There are different companies making chargers similar to what REDARC's doing, but none of them are doing exactly what REDARC's doing. REDARC has what's called a green power priority. If it's a perfect day and I can get 8 amps off of my solar panel, it's going to take the 8 amps first from solar and then take the rest from your alternator. It's not really going to affect your mileage that much, but it is less strain on your alternator. It gives it exactly what it needs at a pace that the battery likes, because every battery charges differently. You don't have to press any buttons, you don't have to do anything. It just does it on its own. Let's use 100 amp hours just because it's a simplified number. You can't take one of these traditional batteries and just drain it all the way. You don't have 100 amp hours of battery in that. It's technically rated at that, but it's not realistic. So if you have 100 amp hours, you're really only going to get 50 amp hours out of that battery. So you're putting this giant, near 100 pound block under your hood, and you can only use half of it. My Optima yellow top weighs 75 pounds, 73 pounds, something like that. It's a 55 amp hour battery. I'm going to a 50 amp hour lithium battery, and it weighs 17 pounds. So what I'm trying to build now is I'm trying to build a system that can go 3, maybe even 4 days off of not having to run the truck at all. Most refrigerators, ARB, Snowmaster, National Luna, they all have an auto low voltage disconnect. So what that does is it protects your battery and it protects you from not being able to start your truck the next morning. You'll see major voltage drops out of an AGM right away. When you're down to like 75%, you're gonna see that thing at probably 11.7 volts or something. Maybe if it's a brand new battery, you'll see better than that, but over the years, I mean, it really does take its toll. You get down to 50%, like that battery is not happy, your refrigerator is gonna shut off, and it's harder to charge an AGM battery. They don't take charge very well. So with lithium, the advantage is that you can use the entire amount of charge that it has. It's not like an AGM where you can only use 50%. You can use 100% of the charge, more or less. It's once you get down to the 10% range, they start to fade a little bit. With a lithium battery, you can charge them 5 times faster than you can a traditional lead acid AGM, whatever you're looking at. Lithium will charge faster than that. The disadvantage of a lithium battery is you can't mount it under the hood of the vehicles. With these newer DC to DC chargers, instead of running a giant battery cable to all the batteries, you're running a smaller cable from your starter battery. You run it to the DC to DC charger, and then what it does is it decides how to charge your battery. You basically, it comes with instructions. It tells you if you have an AGM, you do this. If you have a lithium, you do this. And so what these chargers do is they will deliver, for instance, the one I got is the BCDC1225, a 12 volt, 25 amp charger. So when I'm driving, it will take up to 25 amps, and as you're driving, it'll deliver that as the battery needs it. Lead acid, AGM, calcium batteries, lithium batteries, they all have a different charging profile and different voltage that they want from your vehicle. Even if you're not going to a lithium battery right away and you think you might down the road, these new DC to DC chargers can be set up in a way to where it'll save you money later. So you can buy the same charger that I'm going to be putting in here, set it up, use it with AGM, and then later down the road, if you decide to go to a lithium battery, reset up the charging profile for your new lithium battery, and you can use the same charger. The disadvantage of a lithium, they have limitations on how much amperage they can output at any given time. I will not be able to use the new lithium battery for winching at all. It's only 60 amps continuous rating, which is fine because I'm running a refrigerator, which takes like maximum 5 amps, all LED lights and stuff. But the lithium is gonna fit my type of camping better. My solar is gonna work way better. I like fiddling with things, so I'm gonna put another battery system in this. I'm gonna remove the Optima. I'm gonna remove the Blue Sea system. I'm gonna remove my SunSaver solar controller. All in all, wiring this is really simple. There's one wire that goes to the solar, one wire goes to this battery, one wire goes to your starter battery. That's pretty much it, and a ground, of course. I'm gonna test out how well the 50 amp hour does, because I think this should be sufficient for FjCruisers, Jeeps, 4Runners, stuff like that. If I had a Tacoma with a camper top, I might think about doing a 100 amp hour just because there's different things you can build in that space that might take up electricity, like an electric water heater or something like that. After the refrigerator ran off the battery all night, the battery was at about 75% charge. On my way back to the shop this morning, it's about a 10-minute drive. I gained 7% back in that amount of time, which is crazy. Essentially what this thing's doing is it's putting a load on your alternator, on your system. An alternator isn't a battery charger. They're not designed that way. A lot of people may not understand that, but an alternator is basically designed to run the things while you're driving, like stereo, stuff like that, and to recharge a little bit of the battery that was used to start the vehicle. After the vehicle started, you shouldn't be relying on the battery at all. This charger, what it does is it demands a load from the alternator of 25 amps. So there's a simplicity to it and there's an effectiveness to it. You're not just relying on a general voltage pattern to charge your battery back up. It's really nice not having a switch to deal with. It's just doing what it needs to do. I'm gonna put foam around this to protect it a little bit, and then I'll have a strap that goes around the top of it to keep it in place. So this is the installation. It's pretty basic. I gotta finish some things up, but all in all, it was pretty simple. Less space, less weight. Something I completely had forgotten about was that running the Optima, the refrigerator wasn't quite keeping up. So I started, instead of running it on auto, I started running it on low speed pretty much completely, which basically stops it from getting into like a 5 amp draw mode. It keeps it at 2.5. With the new battery setup, I'm gonna go back to auto because I won't have to worry about the voltage cutoff. It's kind of an unfair test because with the AGM, I was having to run it on low, and I've been doing that for like 2 years, so I completely forgot about me even doing that. It's more of a challenging task for the lithium battery because it's gonna be using 5 amps more consistently rather than just 2.5 flat. It's gonna be drawing more power. So if the lithium can keep up with that, then we're doing really good. When I used to run the AGM on the auto cycle for the refrigerator, it was struggling. And then when the battery gets that low with an AGM, you got to do a lot of driving to pick that back up. And the solar is going to help, but the refrigerator also on a summer day, of course, is still drawing power. So you're only regaining so much. Versus with this system, it's so much quicker to charge the battery back up. In a matter of 2 hours, I should be able to charge this battery from 0 to full just off the alternator. We've put it through its paces quite a bit. We went to Lake Powell where we're basically dealing with 102 degrees, and I was putting probably 90-degree beers into the refrigerator. I was trying to make ice all day, and I actually was able to run the battery completely flat. And so I kind of tested the limits of it. I knew I was doing that. It's not a situation I'm gonna run into a lot, but I've been paying attention to the amperages and how much it's collecting at any given time and how fast the battery's actually taking a charge when I'm both driving and when I'm relying on solar to do everything. We're gonna be living out of the FJ for the next week. I've used an electric blanket inside the tent. I always use a fan when I sleep in this thing. We've got the lights on the awning. The refrigerator, I'm charging my batteries. I'm charging the Sony camera, the GoPro. I'm charging several different devices, and my battery has yet on a realistic basis where I'm not intentionally over challenging it. It's not going below about 30%. The first thing I noticed when I got the Battleborn was how quickly it takes a charge. It's pretty insane comparing it to an AGM or a lead acid battery. It can pick up a charge from solar just with like 8 amps with the refrigerator running, drawing 5 amps, 3 to 5 amps. The battery will still charge in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours from that. It's pretty insane. I am demanding more from my battery system than a lot of people will. I'm always freezing things. I'll take beer from the refrigerator, put it in the freezer, and just that process alone is going to deplete a lot more energy on a daily basis. So with my results from this, if you're just using a refrigerator in your truck, it's going to be a lot better than what I'm getting away with. There have been a few situations where I wish I would have gotten a 100 amp hour rather than the 50 amp hour battery, but for space, I think the trade-off is about perfect for this size vehicle, because if I would have gone that much bigger, I would have lost a lot of space, and there'd be very few times that I would actually need that energy. It's a matter of just being smart about how much battery I'm actually using. I've used the REDARC and Battleborn combination for 9 days straight. The lowest I got it to was about 12%, and that's because we were using the heated blanket when we were camping in Vail at a really high elevation and it was colder. And also I was packing a bunch of stuff into the fridge that was warm, typical. On a little setup like this, a little SUV, a little 4Runner, I think that the 50 amp hour is going to suit most people. If I had a Tacoma or some sort of a truck or a camper type topper for a truck, I think I would go with a 100 amp hour battery just so you can worry about it that much less. The 50 is good for this, for the weight and for the space that I have, the lack of space that I have. So I think the 50 amp hour is perfect for this setup, but I think when I get a truck at some point and start building that, I will probably do 100 amp hour at least. Battleborn, I'm not an ambassador for or anything like that. I paid basically full price. They'll give you a discount if you call. I'm using REDARC because I wanted to, and then I asked for a discount. I'm not using REDARC because I got a discount. REDARC seemed the best for what I'm using since I rely so much on solar, and it has a lithium profile. It's easy to hook up. It's exactly what I wanted. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, I'm going to make a video on this, and they were friendly enough to give me a discount. I did pay for this though. This wasn't free. With these types of battery chargers, if you completely drain the battery flat, the BCDC doesn't actually see that there's a battery there. So if there's no energy whatsoever left in that battery and you wake up and try to start the vehicle, it's not going to charge the battery because it doesn't see that there's a battery there. So what you have to do is you have to use like a jumper wire. When I did manage to deplete the battery completely, is I just ran a wire. I carry a spare section of wire anyway for electrical repairs, and I jumped it from my starter battery to my fuse panel on the positive, and it saw it for just a second. It gave it enough power to where all of a sudden it started charging it again. So it's not that complicated. The chances of you depleting these on a regular basis is probably pretty slim anyway. If I was just using the refrigerator portion on this, I can't stress this enough, this would probably not go below 60% overnight, probably 70%. The freezer is demanding. It's going to take a lot more power. Trying to freeze things takes a tremendous amount of energy, so you got to remember that. If you're just running an ARB fridge, the 50 is going to be enough for probably 90% of vehicles. I've had the REDARC charger and the lithium battery in here for about 3 months now. I've camped a ton with this whole setup. I've done over 30 days of camping. I've done all the way from a 9-day trip to just short weekend trips. The efficiency you're getting out of a lithium battery, you can get away with a lot more because it just takes a charge so much better. In all the situations I've run it in so far, it's proven to be a much better option. Because I have a higher end solar panel, the way my system works is even on a cloudy day, that thing's gonna be pulling at least an amp and a half. On a good day, it's pulling 9. But on those cloudy days where it's only pulling 1 amp or 2 amps, the battery's actually absorbing it. Versus when I used to have the AGM, it wasn't absorbing enough of the power. I think this system's perfect for anybody with just about any size fridge that you're gonna fit into one of these SUVs. In the few events that I ran this thing down to 0, I did it intentionally. I was warming really warm beers in the desert, like 90 degree, 95 degree drinks, putting them in the fridge, and it was running this thing down big time. Towards the end of this test, I did turn my freezer for the first time in the 3 years that I've owned the Snowmaster, just a refrigerator all across the board, and I am doing significantly better on the charge. I'm only going down to about 67, anywhere from about 67 is the lowest I've seen to 75. It's taking care of itself 100%. The battery hasn't gone to a level that I've been concerned with when I woke up in the morning. As with my old AGM battery, I would wake up in the morning sometimes, go to make coffee, pull the fridge open, and the fridge is off. I didn't realize how much of a hassle it was before to have the thought in the back of my head that I need to be taking care of the battery. I need to be pressing the button if it's not combining or if I haven't disconnected because I don't want it drawing from the main battery. Now this system, I don't worry about it at all, especially when I have the freezer off. I know 100%, even if I park between a couple trees, if I go hunting and I leave the truck for 4 days, that I'm not gonna have to worry about this system at all. The little bit of sunshine that it's gonna collect is gonna take care of everything. It's gonna charge it back up and it's gonna run through. I'm not gonna have any problems. I didn't wanna do a goal zero or anything like that for me personally. I know what I'm gonna be camping out of. I'm not gonna be switching this thing from car to car. This was perfect for me. So if you are looking into a lithium system, I do highly recommend the Battleborn batteries. The original AGM battery cost me about $230 for the battery, $200 for the charge controller, and then the battery cable you have to buy is bigger cable, so that's expensive. It's a bunch of copper. So all of that is about the cost of just the battery for this system, just for the Battleborn. So in the long run, I was already at about $750 had I bought another yellow top. So if I have to buy a new yellow top every 3 years, then within that time span, I've already spent $600 on just batteries. So you're really not that far off with a lithium battery setup. If you camp for a week out of the year, I understand the system doesn't make sense for you. It's expensive. If you're just now getting into the 4x4, touring, overlanding, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to figure out a battery system, I highly recommend you buy a REDARC type of system to where you can upgrade to lithium later. The lithium batteries are going to be more affordable in the next 5 years. So I recommend you plan ahead and get a system like the REDARC. Get something that can charge off of both solar and charge a lithium all in one package. It makes everything so much easier. Everything's taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. Even if I wake up and I have 10% left on the battery, I know by noon my solar panel alone is going to have that thing charged up probably to 70 to 80%. So the takeaway from this is pretty much what I thought it would be. The lithium battery, how fast it charges, how it takes care of things. There's no voltage drop. For our use on these trucks, it is absolutely the best way you can go. If you can afford it, do it. If you're only camping a week out of the year, I understand, it doesn't make sense. But I do recommend you buy a charger that you can upgrade to lithium because lithium is taking over the world. It's getting more and more popular. It's getting cheaper and cheaper. Even if you can't swing the lithium battery now, buy the charger that can charge the lithium, because the next time you go to buy a battery in about 3 or 4 years when that yellow top or whatever deep cycle you get is failing, lithium will probably be affordable enough by then that it'll be kind of stupid not to buy one. So plan for the best. This system, in my opinion, for this type of camping is where it's at. You don't need to be a battery genius to get one of these systems to work. That's my conclusion on this. Thank you to REDARC for letting me test their stuff out. Earlier in the video, I was saying BCDC1225. It's specifically the BCDC1225D. The D is for dual input. It can charge off a solar panel. It can charge off the alternator. Again, I did have to pay for it. They just gave me a little discount because I told them I was going to be making this video. All right, so I think that about covers everything. If you have any questions, ask below. I'm happy to answer anything. Thank you for watching.